Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Marvin Hagler. Now, many of you may know Marvin Hagler was a professional boxer. Of course, he was retired when he passed away. He was a southpaw, I believe. That means he was left-handed. He's a sun in Gemini, and I read one time that there were more left-handed people that were born under the sign of Gemini than any other zodiac sign. Gemini is known to be very dexterous, sometimes ambidextrous. It wouldn't surprise me. Being a boxer, he was obviously probably close to equally skilled with the right and left hand. But with Gemini, having a Gemini sun, it was probably more pronounced. He also has Mercury in the first house in its dignity in Gemini, so that's something right there. That's another indicator that he probably was very dexterous. He was a very skilled fighter, very proficient in what he did. I believe he was undefeated until he lost to Sugar Ray Leonard, I believe in 1987, and he only lost like 3 fights in his entire career. Many people believe unequivocally he was one of the greatest boxers that ever lived, and a lot of that dexterous energy of Gemini was flavored with the Taurus ascendant that gave very strong powers of endurance and greater propensity to finish most fights and go the distance. I know, really easier, I would say, than a lot of other fighters could do. And I'm sure the fighting was flavored with a lot of persistence, patience, and perseverance. Having a Taurus ascendant, of course, good powers of endurance. But I'm going to talk about some natal placements and some transits that may have been tied in to his passing, sadly. Well, the one thing is, I don't believe they have a confirmation of death yet, but it was reported by TMZ through a post on Facebook that there was that Marvin Hagler's son had reported that his father, Marvin Hagler, was experiencing some breathing difficulties and chest pain. Now, at the time of his passing, did have the North Node, transit North Node in loose conjunction to his natal Mercury, and Mercury can be connected with breathing. It is in its dignity in Gemini. When you have transits that involve the North Node, they can be connected with issues one may have to confront or address. Transit Saturn and Aquarius was conjunct his moon at the time, and the moon can be associated with the chest area. Saturn can be difficulties, and it could also, Saturn could also be chronic debilitations. I don't know if this was tied in to anything chronic, but being an Aquarius, it could be very sporadic energy. He might have had very intermittent pain in the chest, maybe at least prior to the point where he was being taken to the hospital. Now, another thing, when I look at the chart as well, he also had, the moon being in the, in the 10th house conjunct midheaven. That right there, that could be a placement aspect for notoriety, and being in Aquarius, it could be something, rather unorthodox, something unusual. The thing what I noticed too, in this chart as well, as far as any other transits that may have been tied into unexpected passing, I think one thing, transit Uranus is in his 12th house at this time. And transit, Uranus can be connected, with the unpredictable. 12th house is limitations, restrictions. I would say could be weaknesses as well. But the thing is, as far as the natal placement goes, he does have Pluto in Leo in the 4th house of the end of life. And when I look at this, well, Pluto, in Leo's generation, but it doesn't mean a person couldn't have a little greater proclivity to die as a result of a heart condition. The chest pain may have been attributed to something heart related. Of course, there's no confirmation on this. Fourth house is the end of life, but the fourth house is also, as far as, houses in astrology, many of you may know, some of you may not know, that each house corresponds with certain body parts, and the fourth house can be connected with the chest. And he did have chest pain when he was taken to the hospital, according to a report by his son, Marvin Hagler's son. And also, I'm looking at his chart as far as any health-related issues. Well, the ruler of the end of life, the ruler of the fourth house cusp, which is fourth house cusp is Leo. The ruler is the sun in Gemini, and the thing is that the fourth house does reflects the end of life. That ruler, the sun, was not far from transit Mars in Gemini at the time, and Mars can be connected with pain. I don't know if he might have had, something called pleurisy. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or if there was some lung condition as well, but Gemini can be associated with the lungs. Of course, the sun can have a connection with the physical body. Yes, the ascendant is what dominates the appearance in the physical body, but the sun can play a role in this as well. Now, the thing about it too, I'm looking at his 8th house, and his 8th house cusp is Sagittarius. So, in the ruler, I don't know if he had any issues when he died, anything with the liver or sciatic nerve or pancreas, but the ruler of the 8th house cusp, which is Jupiter, is in the 2nd house. So there may have been, the one thing about this, for the most part, he did have some pain, but I'm wondering if he may have died somewhat peacefully, given that it falls in the second house. But the ruler Jupiter also conjoins Venus, and Venus, anatomically speaking, can be connected, with the throat and neck area. He does have a Taurus ascendant. And I'm wondering if there may have been some issues with that at the time of his passing. Now, the thing about this too is, and again, a lot of this it's hard to look at, because to see everything in the chart that may have resonated with his passing, because we don't have, at least I don't have, a full clarification on how he passed away. But the thing that I'm looking at too, in his 8th house, he does have Mars in it, and Mars can be connected something of physical nature. It can be pain, and it is in the 8th house of death. Now, another thing too, I'm looking at as well, and I don't know what he had at the time of his passing. He has Libra on the cusp of his 6th house of health. Now, the 6th house of he's got Libra on it. Libra can be connected with the lower back, the kidneys. I don't know if he ever had any issues with diabetes or hypoglycemia. He also has Neptune in the 6th house, and Neptune in the 6th house can give just some general, dissolving or dissipation, of the health. It can be, issues with the feet, the toes, the lymphatic system, the immune system. And another thing I'm looking at too in his chart is the fact that he also, looking at this as well, transit Pluto may not conjoin his north node by as far as what we astrologers use as far as orbs go. But Pluto was not far from his natal. Actually, transit Pluto was actually very close to proximity to his natal Chiron. And I'm just scroll down his chart just to confirm. Yeah, because his natal Chiron reads, it looks like it's 28 degrees Capricorn, and transit Pluto 26 degrees Capricorn. It's at least a loose conjunction by transit. And the thing about this is, Chiron in astrology can be connected not just with emotional ones, but physical ones as well. And Pluto is associated with death. And the thing about this is, being in Capricorn, Capricorn can be connected with the knees, the bones, the joints, the hamstrings, the skin, I don't in teeth. I don't know if he had any issues with that. I believe it's a gallbladder as well. And the thing about this is it could have also, the way this may have manifested that Saturn, I'm sorry, Capricorn is that melancholy, depressive sign. So it might have been where this is something that had more, you could say, more sorrow, more despondency, more dejection that was connected with his passing, and also Chiron is connected with suffering. That could give more suffering in connection with it as well. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything else in his chart, that as far as natal placements or transits that can be tied into the passing. Well, he has the ruler of his 12th house of hospitalization. Okay, he has Aries on the cusp of the 12th house. The ruler Mars is in the 8th house. I believe he did die in the hospital. That could be an indicator of a death at the hospital, And the thing about this too is, I thought is interesting looking at, as far as in this chart, he appears to have an opposition between his Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, 29 degrees, opposing Mars in a relatively early Capricorn degree. And the thing about this is the fact, I think, when you look at, oppositions and squares, they're adverse aspects, but it doesn't mean they can't have something positive associated with it. The way I look at it is this. I mean, Mars in astrology is involved in the opposition aspect. Mars can be connected with combat and fighting. And the thing about it is, Jupiter conjunct Venus and Gemini. Well, I mean, Jupiter and Venus, of course, are both about prosperity. I mean, right there, that's an indicator of very good prosperity through something Gemini related, mental agility, versatility, being able to use your hands equally, sometimes even being ambidextrous. He has it in the second house of money. But the thing about that is that actually, and that's also, I mean, you have that energy in Jupiter being the planet of luck and fortune. It's fortuitous and it's prosperous in Venus, and it's in the second house of talents and attributes. It opposes Mars. I think that could have manifested in that ability, being able to combat the who he was fighting. Basically, he would be able to use that to go against the boxers, because it's in opposition. That's opposing Mars, and Mars again is about combat. It's about fighting, and the other energy is going against it. Mars is also one of the rulers of his seventh house of competition and open adversaries. So very interesting how that panned out. And the thing is, you look at this, and again, it's a terrible thing. I think he was like 66 years old at his passing, so I can understand why it was unexpected. Maybe, I don't know if he had any chronic debilitations or illnesses, but this is something where, when you look at this, that anybody, theoretically can go at any time, and just be, whether you're a former prize fighter, you were somebody, if you were a weightlifter, or you're somebody very strong physically, but nobody really is impervious to dying in certain manners. And it's like when you had these people that have passed away, from the coronavirus, especially when it was more prevalent in 2020. I even stated in a number of my videos that it doesn't really matter how strong physically you are. Anyone could get it. I believe, or almost everybody can have some certain susceptibility or propensity to getting it. You remember when The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, had contracted it, and I mean, you're talking about a larger than life, athlete. So, and I'm just checking once again to see if there's anything else that might have been any contributing role as far as transits or natal placements to his passing. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay right.